Thank you very much for inviting us over. I think this is very interesting topic which we're going to discuss, and frankly speaking, a little bit about myself before we actually dive into this topic. I spent 15 years in compliance AML in traditional finance, and last 7-8 years in more crypto. Right now, a lot happening in AI, so also very much interested in what's happening there. And I think the topic of important also to mention is that I was chairman of the Polish Compliance Association. So regulations are very close to my heart, and I see a lot of benefits, and I also earn a lot of money out of regulations. So, but at the same time, right now, and you know this very well, because we talk already before, that I am on the kind of on the edge of whether regulations are helping or not, and I think with the panelists right now, we're going to have really interesting conversation of, where we are with this and, what's going to happen and what's your view. I would like to start with the point on, pretty general point on, whether actually regulation could help to grow innovation or to improve innovation or to actually stifle innovation, right? And just to throw there, I see a lot of benefits coming from regulations, but at the same time, I saw MiFID, which I think is one of the, which is Market in Financial Instrument Directive in Europe, which I think was the killer of the financial market in Europe. So what's your view, starting from Katharina?
Can you hear me? Hey. Thank you very much, and great to be here. I will add one point to my presentation. I'm also president of Swiss-Polish Blockchain Association. There is such organization with quite active in the space. And there will be another conference of September 4th also here. So please make notes and come over. And now shortly to the question about is it helpful, is it not, can it help? Unfortunately, and I'm very consciously saying unfortunately, I'm also making money based on regulations. Whoever is trying to start a crypto business is not able to say what is in place, what is not. Is his business being illegal or might be not? And this is not that he is bad or wants to misuse the system. It's simply almost impossible to say, can I go ahead with the business model or not? And when I see SEBA Bank, which has been incorporated in Switzerland some time ago, when we saw that 60% of the money which came from investors went for legal and regulatory issues, and they had to spend this money to figure out, can a bank hold assets like crypto assets? Is it fiat comparable to crypto payments? So we keep answering all of the questions every day. And as much as I am into let's regulate as little as possible based on the situations what we're having now, like shall a company onboarding a clients which only dealing with crypto and exchanging crypto, no interface to fiat, shall they do AML or not? Now it's clear they have. But take into account the experience, what I've made now last 10 years, I would say, really following fintech, I would say, yes, the regulations are quite helpful. When we have
especially for lawyers.
But sure. I could keep making the money, advising them, writing 20 pages, saying, listen, at the end, it's your decision. You need to make a decision because I am being a doctor in law, admitted in few jurisdictions. I'm not able to tell you what exactly and definitely applies to your business. So, yes, in my opinion, regulations helpful.
Michal, very quickly, just to maybe narrow this down to MiCA, right?
Sure.
Like, how do you see MiCA? And again, we had a lot of conversation around this. Exactly,
it's quite a long
this is what you get in Europe, like this is exactly how it looks. Is MiCA going to help to grow, in your opinion, the business, or it's actually going to be impacting negatively?
Sure, thank you for this question. One general remark. Stable and clear legal environment and regulatory environment is quite important for the business. Irrespective of the, let's say, the business model, it's crypto or a traditional finance, doesn't matter. We need regulation. We need a regulation that is quite clear to make business. That's a general remark. When it comes to MiCA, well, it's it's a step. It's a step ahead to make a better environment for crypto business, that's for sure. But we have to remember that the crypto business is global, not local, and we have a regional, local regulation here. So I'm not sure whether Mika will change the way we are using crypto. Of course, it will give some powers to relevant authorities like the KNF and other bodies around the European Union for sure. So we will see some kind of fines, for example, or some proceedings against crypto business. That's for sure. On the other hand, we will have some regulated entities that will try to adhere to all of the regulations, all of the provisions of MiCA, and they will probably lost in a battle for clients in this case. That's one thing. And another thing is that as far as crypto business is quite global, we will have some issues with enforceability of this regulation for sure. So, trying to answer in one sentence, I would say that MiCA is helpful, but it will not solve all the issues for the crypto business.
Okay, Marcin, question to you. So you are deeply involved and for many years in the crypto world, and one thing which is kind of very interesting in our space, and I don't know how many of you are in crypto and in blockchain, but if you look for main projects and main exchanges, none of them are in the stand except Coinbase. That's the only one out of I think top 30 exchanges. The rest is BVI. Malta.
How about Kraken?
Yeah, yeah, okay, Kraken will be top 30, but if you top 10, it's actually Coinbase only, right? Cayman Islands and etc., right? Do you think that, what we know in our industry as regulatory arbitrage is actually kind of the result of industry saying, we don't want to be overly regulated and we go where it's easier to make business, and which is playing back to our discussion, which is, is regulation actually impacting negatively or positively the industry? A bit lengthy.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor, so I can allow myself to say I don't know. I think if let's look at the whole crypto industry from a higher perspective. It's a relatively small market. Compared to derivatives, compared to stock markets, it's a very small market. And I think we have a tendency to live in this bubble. If we do business in crypto, we think that everybody also perceives it the same way as we are. And I think we are at a very early stage. So all those exchanges which you mentioned, they are using the fact that it's still unregulated, that you can operate a business like even the biggest exchange, which has almost 90% of all the BTC transactions, Binance. The question is, where they really are registered. They operate under a whole network of different shell companies around the world. The structure is so ambiguous that one doesn't really know who to sue if something happens. But they dominate the market. And I don't think this would be possible under MiFID. So, to amplify what was said before, I think the regulation, such as MiCA, they give clarity. This is a positive thing. If you want this technology to go outside of the bubble, if you want large corporations, blue chip companies, if you want governments to start looking at this technology not from the prism of crypto scams and some geeks trading coins, but really to look at it, to look at the potential of technology, we need to have regulation. Otherwise, they will not step in. So that's why I think it's important. On the other hand, when we look at MiCA, there is this issue of regulatory arbitrage. Would MiCA become another GDPR that will set a global standard that even US-based, Japanese-based websites attack you with all those GDPR notices, cookies, even though they are based elsewhere? Because EU is such a great market that you need to adopt. I don't know. I think this will, on the one hand, I hope it will happen. I don't know how it will look in practice because it's a very complicated creature. But this will definitely accelerate other jurisdictions to go even further. And maybe one last comment. I know that what's been happening last years is there are literally whole trips of US policymakers that are addressing crypto and blockchain-related matters going to Europe to learn how to regulate. It's not the other way around.
Sure.
Thank you.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. One thing, for example, when I'm reading MiCA, there are some quite interesting provisions that are addressed to traditional finance. For example, I'm not talking about investment banks that are having fun with some crypto business and things like that. Let's say about the traditional credit institutions. They will be able, based on the provisions of MiCA, to issue asset reference tokens, which means that in the future it might become, the crypto business might become a little bit more professional and to become more, let's say, open for other players as well. So there is a way. Maybe it's a step to combine DeFi and also traditional finance. It might be one scenario, and I would really love to have this scenario actually.
Yeah, just on this point, I think, the interesting part is, we love being rebels in crypto, right? And suddenly you're saying that, oh, we just, creating playing ground so the big boys can come over, right? So that's an overview. They're not going to bring innovation, that's for sure. They're going to actually stifle innovation, so that's the point, to play back on MiCA.
I truly hope that MiCA will become the standards, and I truly hope for Poland that it will become financial fintech hub, because there is a huge potential. That could be a country where you can get your license and passport it to other countries, and I think there is a possibility. I'm speaking this as a lawyer who lives outside of Poland in a third country in relation to Poland. I live in Switzerland, where I advise for many Swiss companies this could be the way to get to European market. But we have to do it smartly, quickly, and in time, really. And there are many regulations which still need to be more clarified under MiCA. Let's say this asset reference token, does it cover stablecoin? Who is yes, who is not? You don't know when you read the definition. So, but yes, what you said, it will give the possibility to traditional finance to invest, because as for now, it's difficult for banks or investment funds to invest in crypto assets, as they only by definition can invest in securities which are known on the market or licensed, or be it bonds, be it shares, be it whatever. And another thing in relation to Marcin, what he said, that all of the companies were somewhere, BVI, wherever, I think there were regulations in place. Let's say Switzerland, the Swiss financial authority had already at the beginning said, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and swims like a duck, this is a duck. So if your token is payment token, you need to apply regulations related to banks. If your token is a bond or security, speaking about bond and 81 security issues with Credit Suisse, another story. But when we have some time, I can say a little bit about it. But if they are those economic functions, they were regulations. And funny enough, advising many startups coming to us, they would say, oh, we want to apply the regulations, we want the regulations. Then I told them, what are the regulations? What do you have to do? Not necessarily. I don't really have 10 million Swiss francs to create a bank and so far and so on. So I hope it will be a good instrument. Let's hope for it.
Just one more thing. One addition to that. I have clients that are asking me whether we are able to help them to adhere to the regulations that will come into force in 1 or 2 years from now. They were asking also for being in compliance with the draft MiCA regulations. So it's not always about crypto rebels. Sometimes there are people that are using innovation technology.
That's why we don't have big businesses in crypto in Poland,
Okay.
Except Aleph. But Aleph is in Switzerland. Yeah, Marcin, you want to add anything, or?
Yes, just at bottom to what Kasia said. I agree that there was there were regulations in place concerning security tokens, right? If something fulfills the definition of a security token, that it is a security. But there are other types of tokens that were virtually not regulated, and there were people buying them, utility tokens, and no protection. Anybody could issue a utility token.
What protection?
So I think these areas, they need to be clarified, because if you are a professional business, you're looking at this, and you have years of experience with doing real business, you're not treating the whole space seriously. You just feel like we need a certain level of clarity. And I know we are focusing right now on crypto, but blockchain is way broader than that.
Yeah.
And I think this conference is so special because we focus on everything else than crypto.
Yeah.
And in this, I wanted to finish is that what blockchain really is just a mean of storing data. It's just technology. And if you use it in medtech, the regulations applicable to medtech will apply. If you process personal data regulations will apply. So these sectoral laws are already in place. But we keep looking at blockchain as this something very special. It's just a technology.
Yeah, and I think this is interesting, because I mean there's interesting transition to the second part of our topic, which is AI, artificial intelligence, right? And there's so much happening in this space so quickly, right? There's actually, at some point we got this open letter, post giant AI experiment signed by Elon Musk and Noah Harari, Apple co-founder Stephen Wozniak, and all this stuff, And so the interesting part when you read this letter, right, is written: contemporary AI systems are now becoming human competitive at general task, and we must ask ourselves: should we let machines flood our information channels with propaganda and untruth? Should we automate away all the jobs, including the fulfilling ones? Should we develop non-human minds that might be eventually outnumber, outsmart, obsolete, and replace us? And it's something, which is a lot of discussion on regulations. Should we apply regulations? Actually pausing to apply regulations or ethical model, right? And, considering, the panel and considering, your experience in blockchain, I think, this is new industry that will be somehow similar, because the potential will be offshoring if they will be too regulated, going to the, China or to Asian countries or to Latin America, when all the experiment around AI will be, permitted, and we're going to have, again, regulatory arbitrage, right? Should we do ethical applications, so ethics, create some ethical model around this? Should we apply strict regulations, or we should do nothing and just simply let it go, because it's technology? It's not effectively, it's nothing else. It's not even transferring funds, right? It's just simple technology. Marcin.
I'm not an AI expert at all.
I know,
so.
but you know regulations.
Again, let's maybe start with fundamentals. What AI really is? How we define AI? Are we thinking that what ChatGPT does is an AI, or is it just large language model? It's a repetitive kind of work that it's an algorithm that was trained on a large raft of data.
But it's similar to crypto, right? It's almost like smart contracts. It's doing their own thing. It's uncontrolled.
Yeah, smart contracts. They are not smart. They are not contracts, right? They are simple computer programs, right? We can always reduce it to that. I know that we have an expert here in AI, but I will make one comment. You said about regulatory arbitrage. There are two, I think, phenomena that are right now being discussed. It's less about regulation, but they can affect regulation. One, there was a book written 2 years ago by Kai-Fu Lee about AI superpowers. This competition between US and China, and why China is predestined to win the race. And one of the arguments was because especially Europe, for example, Europe was destined to fail in this race because we had GDPR. So it was impossible for the AI models to learn on the large sets of data because they were protected. This was personal data. You cannot process it. So China had this privilege where you don't have personal data protection, or the government, the authorities can share your data probably however they like. So China had this privilege. apparently, I read this last month that China is really falling back in the race, because especially in the language models, large language models, because only 1.5% of the content in the internet is in Chinese. 50-60 is in English. This is one of the things. And second phenomena is about open source. So it costed approximately $100 million to train the ChatGPT by OpenAI. It costed them so much. Right now you have open source large language models algorithms that will, if you utilize them, it would cost you a couple $100s to achieve the same level of expertise that. And this, again, allows China to keep up. Should we regulate this race, maybe, in the copyright way somehow? Should we regulate, because right now the geopolitics come into play. But it was less regulatory, was less philosophical. But
so you're saying that China is coming back to the race because of the open source models?
At least in the large language models. They are still probably, if you look at the number of AI-related research papers published, 20-something% globally. AI-related patterns, 20% something globally. They are on top. But does anybody check the quality of those patterns or those papers? I don't know.
Interesting, I mean, you mentioned, and the Stability AI Llama, which is, I'm not sure, how open they are. At some point, probably they can be wrapped into, under the Meta Facebook, umbrella, right? But even, considering that we have players who are centralized AI providers, right? BART, OpenAI, and then we have a couple of them which are open source, which is effectively there is no jurisdiction except internet being the jurisdiction for them. There's no jurisdiction who is managing this project. It's very similar to what's happening in crypto. Yeah. So Marcin, what's your view? I mean, where are we gonna see the next steps? Obviously, we have European regulations, which I think they came up. Michal. Yeah, sorry.
No, just joking. Of course, we have so many issues here and so many questions to answer, and we don't have time for that. So I'm gonna focus on a few things, and to make it quick, I'm gonna read 2 or 3 titles of the provisions of the new AI Act, which were proposed a few weeks ago, actually. One is obligations of the provider of a foundational model, which is about the ChatGPT and related models. There is a quite extensive list of obligations. Another one is obligations of deployers of high-risk AI systems, which is for users in general. Another thing is the fundamental rights impact assessment for high-risk AI systems. And there is another Article 4A, which requires to implement artificial intelligence in an ethical way. There are some requirements for that, I mean, like the trustworthy AI and things like that. And the question here is whether we will be able to adhere to these rules. I'm pretty sure that we will not be able to do that, especially for these large language models. It's impossible right now to adhere to all the requirements here. Even this impact assessment, this human rights impact assessment, okay, the idea is quite good. We have to protect people, we have to protect human rights or the fundamental rights, but the thing is that we don't have tools for that. We don't have technical means for that. So in many places of the AI Act, you have to adhere to these rules, but taking into consideration the state of play or state of art for that. So it will be really, really difficult for authorities that will be also responsible for the supervision to enforce these rules. So it's the same. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And I think, I mean, that's what you say. It's very interesting because that's actually regulations which are creating uncertainty as opposed to certainty, which
exactly.
is, like whether we have rules, but they can create uncertainty more than certainty, which is killing the business, right? Uncertainty.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to add something, but okay.
No, I have one thing what you just said about the ethical requirements. What is ethics? Is the same ethics? Do you have the same ethics? Like, is the ethics somebody living, let's say, in Kuwait, the same ethics.
I think
Japan,
in Europe we're
and
going to
so
have
far and so
German
on.
ethics.
Exactly.
You know, come on,
Might be. I don't know. It's just really open, and I totally understand what you're saying. That it's instead of creating clarity, it will bring us some other regulations. But I would like to come back a little bit to what AI is. Where are we at the moment? Nowhere. We at the moment when some computer software is able to read the language, but there are some deep learning. And at the end, what is AI is in the moment when software or algorithm is able to teach other software, not us teaching the software what you have to say, but they teach among each others, and then we really have the proper AI. But I think we still some time, let's say, not there. One thing about how it is used. We had a case recently discussing. It is not real case, but let's assume there is a car using navigation system and going and running all the time in the same location on the street, just basically turning left. Why this is turning left that nobody is able to say why it's turning left? Let's assume it will be self-driving car. And this is what Marcin said. I'm coming now to the point. Because of the GDPR, we may have problem in Europe because we have data, private data when we collect, then we need to anonymize them or at least make them unreachable. So in order to figure out why this bloody car is turning left all the time, we would have to find out, was there somebody like a driver who is having issues? Was something there, but we can't access those data because they inaccessible or anonymized. So it's just an example. It might be many of them, but to achieve proper balance between how we use the data, protect them, it's a really huge challenge. But we have to address the issue because otherwise the AI will.
As we've all probably heard about the case of Italy banning use of ChatGPT because of GDPR concerns.
Well, Bard being banned in Europe.
Yes, that's another thing. I know that Cambridge University doesn't allow students to use ChatGPT in their assessment. How they are going to check it, I don't know, but they just banned it. And there's other issue.
But you were telling funny story, right? That there's someone who is writing the doctoral thesis, right? And they actually use and they found the article.
Yes,
provided the answer to the thesis,
but
ChatGPT
can generate a fake content. So there's an issue of copyrights. What those large language models do, they let's say analyze and they come up with a new content that is based on other potentially copyrightable content, but they don't give credit to the author. What happens then? I think we are going to have massive flow of lawsuits soon. Who will be sued? Will it be OpenAI as an entity behind ChatGPT? Would it be users that actually generated this and maybe submitted, a master's thesis that has generated content that, ChatGPT created from somebody else's work? This is another issue that we are opening a box of Pandora, and nobody is addressing this.
Or Microsoft suing everyone who didn't pay, copyright charges to them because they use OpenAI, and right now there could be so many angles.
There's one thing. I mentioned that during one of the conferences by the Ministry of Justice here in Poland about the artificial intelligence within the justice system. It's not about ethical AI. It's about implementing artificial intelligence in an ethical way. For that, you don't actually need regulation. For that, you need some values, some norms that you want to adhere. Of course, AI Act is not bad when it comes to the idea, but the execution is quite bad. We should focus on other things. There is one interesting thing here, AI literacy. And also in another act, which is Data Act, there is also a data literacy. This is what we actually need. We need education, we need tools, we need instruments to make people aware of the risks, aware of the, actually about the risks and challenges, and how should they cooperate, how should they use this artificial intelligence.
This is an excellent short story coming from Stanisław Lem, przyjaciel, friend, which is, excellent, kind of description of what can happen. I mean, it's worth reading. I mean, this guy's just incredible, you know, in 60s.
Yeah. What you just guys said. The one thing what I wanted to add, because we keep discussing this all the time, in relation to how shall we regulate, what shall we do about it, and it's a little bit what you said. I think technology is neither good nor bad, but this is up to us what we will do with the technology. But one thing I wanted to say. 3 weeks ago, I was fortunate enough to visit presentation by Barack Obama in Zurich. And the gentleman who was interviewing him asked him, hey, Mr. President, what is your professional career? What do you think you will be doing? And he said, well, when you were president of the US, it's kind of strange to send application for a job. So he's thinking about creating himself probably a job. It's not what he said, but what I understood, there might be an idea to create a body, global body to deal with issues related to AI, to ethical issues, to security, to cybersecurity, all of them. So I think we are expecting something will happen on a global level, because I think everybody is clear. No more small local laws.
Just really short. But I'm pretty sure that it will be really challenging and difficult, because if you would look at UNESCO making recommendations for ethical AI in education, for example, and you would look at the drafting process, you could see that many jurisdictions like China, like United States and the European Union or the member state had completely different views. And the whole document, the final document, was kind of, in English, compromise. Okay, that's fine. Which is not really good, to be honest.
But he said it. He said it that it will be challenging. Everybody knows, no more, because as mentioned, China may have totally different views on than we have here. Let's say Arabic country, Islamic country, our Christian democracy, we see many things differently. Let's say copyrights. Copyrights in the US, copyright is right to copy. In Europe, we have moral rights, the rights of authorship. Who is the author? My husband, every evening, because I always complaining, you never say me something romantic, never. So what he is doing now, every night he put to the chat TB8, please write a poem for my wife. And he reads it loud, really. So to me, and that the poems are better and better every day. Now I ask him, so should you then publish all of those poems? Can you do it? So, but guys, try it. It's a fantastic way to...
Kasia, I don't know how to transition from, I mean, your last words into, like, from romantic into wrapping this up, you know? So, listen, yeah, I think, you know... Exactly, you know. I think, you know, what's happening at the moment is really exciting. You know, at the same time, I'm very, very worried, you know, about Europe in general to fall behind dramatically because of, you know, unnecessary geopolitics which are reflected in regulations. I would put it in this way. Listen, thank you very much for your, you know, participation. It was excellent. Thank you.